So Amber, what is public matter for this week?
So we're going to discuss what's the difference between a constitutional republic and a democracy. Then we're going to go over, was it Obama's birth certificate?
Yeah.
And Obama's chef that died.
Yes, you want to talk about the chef.
I do want to talk about it because I find it interesting. And then we're also going to bring up Biden's impeachment.
Oh, the inquiry. They want to do the inquiry.
They want
the pre-impeachment process. So
first and foremost, we're going to discuss what a constitutional republic is.
But I wanted to say this first.
Sure.
So sort of the theme here is tying everything together is the fact that it ties into tyranny and governments that are involved in tyranny, and part of tyranny is lying. And so we last week we talked about the cocaine in the White House. We know we're being lied to there, and so forth. We know other things that we've talked about. So this theme of lying under a tyranny is it's kind of the theme for this right now. So, all right.
So you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Go ahead.
So, okay, so most of the time you hear politicians say this is a democracy. Mm-hmm. We have to save the democracy. Constantly
saying it.
But the United States is actually a constitutional federal republic.
We follow a constitution.
Right, which means that the Constitution is the law of the land.
Correct.
Which also means that we can't have like a mob rule or a one rule order. It has to be the Constitution stating that there's checks and balances because there's three different parts. Right? So you've got executive, legislative, and judicial.
Right.
That's not how you say it, but that's what I'm saying. So, with that, everything has to follow what the Constitution states.
Right. We elect representatives
to abide by and follow the Constitution.
Right.
So,
because there's only a certain number of electors. It's not everybody in the country voting on all the law or just giving the power to one person.
Right. So we have, by definition, a republic is a representative form of government that is ruled according to a charter or a constitution. A democracy is a government that is ruled according to the will of the majority.
Ah, yeah.
Although these forms of government are often confused, they are quite different.
Correct.
So the main difference is between a republic and a democracy is the charter or the constitution that limits the power in a republic and often protects the individual rights against the desire of the majority.
Right. Mob rule.
So you also have this, which we all have to remember because it's not really spoken about. So the flag, like when we say I pledge allegiance to the flag, it says I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands.
Yes.
So we have to understand that it doesn't say for the democracy for which it stands.
Right.
It says for or to the republic.
Now, did the founding fathers do this because they knew that certain areas that were heavily populated might have certain things that they want to do that could influence the rest of the country?
Correct.
The mob rule, right?
Exactly. So the whole point is so that the people in California can't overrule the people in Oklahoma.
Right.
Because there's not as many people there.
Correct. So they have a certain number of people that represent them.
Right.
Right.
And so anytime a government decides it is necessary or desirable to test the boundaries of a constitutional right, it should only be done with caution and with great respect for the constitutional boundaries.
Correct.
So we cannot... This is actually not me saying this. This is actually a firefighter in Connecticut that actually wrote this. But we cannot just go and say that the Constitution is just a piece of paper, because that piece of paper is what tells us at this point our rights for the Bill of Rights and the Constitution.
It's a contract.
It is, and it is founded, and it is has to be abided by the law.
The law, all right.
The funny thing is that so there's the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Constitution.
Right.
The only two that have to be abided by law is the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. Declaration of Independence, though, was built by the Founding Fathers, is not a law contract.
That's correct.
So, with that, it's not just a piece of paper. These are now all of your rights, and these are now how the government should work for you.
Mm-hmm.
It should not be how you work for your government.
Right. So they answer to us.
That is the general idea, yes.
Do you think we've gotten away from that a bit?
Yes, of course we have, because we view them as the superior,
Right.
because they're supposed to know the Constitution better than we are.
All right.
So, in theory, they're supposed to be representing that piece of paper that's telling us what we can and cannot do.
Right.
But it's really telling them what they're allowed to be able to vote on and what they're allowed to do. Like, for instance, the agencies. I feel like I'm talking about the agencies all of the time. Like, it's constant that I'm bringing up.
1946.
And you know, it's very frustrating that we have all of these things
They're
that
unconstitutional.
are not part of the Constitution and that have been added repeatedly over and over again.
And they gave them the power of making law, essentially.
Correct. So we have to understand that it is, it was written so that we can be protected from the government.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be the ones to stand up if the government doesn't do what it's supposed to do.
Right.
So we, the people, are then given the Bill of Rights
Right.
to handle the government that gets out of line.
Right.
It's not really the Bill of Rights to handle anything else
Right.
other than the government. I mean, yeah, I guess the right to bear arms, you know, and free speech, it's great to be able to do. But in reality, these were written so that your government could not take these rights from you.
These were the things that the government couldn't touch.
Correct. And it's really upsetting that they didn't give us more rights, because they thought, and they're rightfully so, that if they wrote them all down, those are the only ones that we got.
If they enumerated them, then that's the only ones we got. And what are they doing now?
Those are the only ones we got.
Pretty much. And they keep whittling away at that.
Right, and they're trying to get rid of, you know, free speech with all the censorship.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. You know, you hear the line, it's a private company. You're right, it is a private company, but they're now being meddled in with our government. So it's no longer a private company.
Right.
Like, they're now part of the government watching you
Right.
and censoring you and taking away things or giving things or finding things out about you, which they don't have a warrant to find. They're just using these tools that
Yeah.
you've given them
Yeah.
to use.
Yeah. Do you remember hearing these things, I don't know, some years ago? It used to ring in my ears all the time. You hear these public-private partnerships where government was getting in bed with businesses, you know, in some form or other. And this is part and parcel of what's going on now, where they've gotten in bed with these various groups like, well, they were in bed with Twitter, for instance.
Yeah.
They're trying to get, they tried with Gab a couple of times.
Yeah.
They've gone to, they started that facial recognition software. They marketed that, or they trialed that through Walmart.
Yeah.
You know, so they're getting these buy-ins from these different private entities.
Right, so so the government is infiltrating these companies that,
Yeah.
you know, and people say, it's a private sector, they can do whatever they want. You're right, they can, but once you involve the government, your constitutional rights are the law of the land. So at that point, once you go in bed with the government, the Constitution is what says
Yeah.
goes.
The government doesn't grant you those rights. They're supposed to be
Right.
protecting those rights.
That would be the idea. But
Doesn't
they
happen.
are not doing that. In reality, we're being force-fed this idea that democracy is what we're trying to save.
Democracy.
Because if you listen to them, you know, this will save democracy. We are here to save democracy. But that's not what we are.
We're not a democracy.
And we need to
We're not a
understand
democracy.
the difference between a republic and a democracy.
Right.
And I don't remember the whole ins and outs, but I believe it was either Rome or Greece, the downfall was democracy.
Right.
Because they were a republic democracy.
Right.
But they went away from being a republic and they decided to go with being a democracy, which then caused their downfall of an entire huge society that they were actually doing semi-well. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they were great or
Yeah.
whatever, but they gave us a lot of things, aqueducts, they gave us many things that we use today, and yet their demise was the democracy.
Culture, art, mathematics.
Almost anything.
Yeah.
So, with that, I am closing that we should abide by the Constitution. And when someone says, the Constitution is just a piece of paper, that piece of paper is golden. It is the most valuable piece of paper all across the world. Why do you think people were trying to get in here at one point in time?
Still! Boy, they're coming in droves, aren't they? Oh, wait, no, they want a check. They want the bennies. They don't want the Constitution.
They don't care about that.
Neither do the. What do you do when you hear? Have you ever written to a
Congressman?
And said, hey, knock off this crap of calling this a democracy? Have you ever brought this point up to any of them?
No, I'm really not good about going and talking to my congressman.
You should write them and see what happens. It's gonna go in
I'll
the round
probably
file.
just, of course it is,
You're gonna
and
get
I'll
a
probably
staff.
just get someone that says, "Oh, thank you for your inquiry.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. You're fantastic. Blah 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 blah. Diversity, equality, and inclusion."
Yeah,
That's what I'll get.
Yeah.
They're not going to talk to me about democracy or republic. They don't even know the difference themselves.
And many of them are attorneys. But attorneys don't study the Constitution anymore. They study case law, which has nothing to do necessarily with the Constitution.
That's interesting, actually. I didn't know that. Okay, so now we're going to go into... so I'm going to talk about the chef that once was a chef for Obama in the White House and then became his personal chef in his home in Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
And he was found Monday, Sunday? I actually don't remember the date. At 10 a.m. in the morning. And I have a bit of a problem with what's happened. I mean, it's already like a closed case. There's nothing...
Another closed case.
Yeah.
Like the cocaine.
Exactly. Other than the toxicology report, which takes longer than them saying, it doesn't look like any foul play. It's closed for the most part. It's deemed a suicide. He fell off his paddleboard in...
a suicide?
Well, drowning. Sorry. It was a drowning. My bad. Not suicide. He fell off his paddleboard. He was 100 feet from the shore. It was a pond. It was only 8 feet deep. And the guy that was, or the girl, the person, the being or whatever, the human that was with him paddleboarding that morning, was too far to get him, or to go, like they couldn't go close enough to him. And then they went to shore and they got someone to call 911. So they didn't see anything other than someone.
She couldn't swim 100 feet to get the guy?
Well, I guess she couldn't see him, because here's this. The story is this: he fell off his paddleboard, and then he came up, and then he went back down, and then he came up again, and then the last time he went back down, and he never came up again. He did not resurface.
So he's in 8 feet of water.
Yeah.
Apparently
100
he
feet.
can't swim.
No, he can swim, and this is the thing, and then this is the whole thing. Everyone's
And he's
like,
got a paddleboard that he could grab, which floats.
supposedly he couldn't get a hold of it. And he didn't have the strap to the paddleboard, because like paddleboard and surfboard, you're supposed to
Well,
hook
it's
on
so
to something.
rough in those ponds, you
The
want
ponds,
it strapped
yeah,
to you.
in Martha's Vineyard. So he has like posts on his Instagram of him swimming and doing all of these different like swimming videos, So how is it that this man drowns in 8 feet of water? That's like...
Wait a minute, are you saying you don't believe it, that this is another lie?
I do.
Did you hear where the statement from Obama was he wasn't there, and then he said, well, he was on the island, but he meant he wasn't there. The story keeps evolving a little bit there.
Well, that's the first thing that you read in these articles. It says Obama and his wife were not home, but his 2 daughters were home. I mean, is it? I don't know. Is the pond in his backyard? I mean, is this near him? Like, I'm very confused on why we're worried about if Obama was home. Like, why is that something that we're looking at? I mean, I think it's some kind of, no, I guess I'll be a conspiracy theorist. I think it's something that he took. He drank something that had something in it, and then, you know.
Do you think there's been foul play?
I think there is. I do. But, you know, I think there's foul play in the whole cocaine thing, because here's what I think. I think that Biden's going to get in trouble with the whole cocaine and bribery thing. He's going to get impeached. Kamala Harris is going to become president for whatever months, even though everyone can't stand her.
Camel toe?
Yes.
Word salad, camel toe?
Yes. And, you know, her ratings are even worse than Joe Biden's. And
she's an attorney, too.
Oh, God. She told us what AI meant, and I almost felt...
It's 2 letters,
It was
you know.
Yes. 2 letters, artificial intelligence, because no one knew what it meant until she told us. You know, we're working hard to do the things that we work hard at. So, and I think she's going to be the president for, I don't know, a couple months, and that's going to go swimmingly.
Ah!
And, then, I don't know. I mean, I think she's going to run again, but I don't think she's going to get anybody. I think, you know, their frontrunner should be Robert Kennedy, but, you know, they don't like him either. They would want to censor him. They're trying to shut him down.
Yeah. So this guy that drowned, his name is Tafari Campbell, and he drowned in a pond.
In a pond.
Do you think they're getting, if there's foul play involved, which I think so too, I really do. I think there's a reason behind this. And that's not a conspiracy. Look at, do you think he was like,
He's 45.
So you think they're using the playbook from the Clintons? You know how many people have been Arkansided by...
Yes.
Did you read that list I sent to you the other day?
Yes.
There's like 60 some odd people in that list.
I don't know how many. They know a lot of people, I guess, that just died.
They just died. How many people do you know, that many around you, that just die?
I don't, that never get investigated. I don't know any.
Did you know that there was a man, a 61-year-old man, that was also a chef for the Clintons, who died in 2015 of drowning as well?
No, are you serious?
Yes, he did.
Oh my gosh.
Campbell's death, the guy that just died, comes just 8 years after Walter Scheib, 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 whatever, who served in the White House as the White House executive chef from '94 to 2005. Was found partially submerged in a ravine in New Mexico mountains. The 61-year-old was reported missing by his girlfriend, and cause of death was drowning.
Wow.
So, do you find that just overly coincidental? Did Obama go to him and say, like, I don't want this guy talking about this. I don't want him saying that Michelle is really Michael. And Clinton is like, hold on here. Hold on.
I can help.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Chef. I got, this is what we...
This is how we handle it.
Yeah.
Is it drowning?
Okay, yeah. We did it in a ravine in the mountains, so, but you got a pond.
I mean, New England's full of them.
So the guy was paddleboarding out in a pond.
That means that there's really no waves. There's really not much to go on. Like, it's a very calm waters unless there's a bunch of boats. And even then, it's not like that rough.
I wouldn't think so.
I mean, it's
maybe a snapping turtle got him.
Yeah, and pulled him under, and he just stayed under. I just find it fishy. I mean, we're getting.
Where are you getting these fishy?
Swimmingly.
Yeah.
I don't.
Pretty funny.
I can't get past it. And the thing is, like, no matter how much I look it up, all you hear is Obama wasn't there. His daughters were in the house. He didn't have a life preserver. I don't even know who. Okay, I guess I must be a very horrible citizen. Who wears a life preserver on a paddleboard in a pond?
Can you say sissy?
I guess. Well, that's what they're saying. They're saying that the paddleboard, that the life preserver, would have saved his life. because he wouldn't have drowned if he was in his life preserver or if he was attached to the paddleboard.
Now, you have a pond in your backyard. Do you wear a life preserver?
No, and it's also 10 feet deep.
Oh my God.
It's even deeper than this guy.
No lifeguard either.
None. There are snapping turtles in there.
And
There's two of them. They're
deadly.
huge too. So I don't know. Maybe if they grab your foot, you might just go under.
So you think we're being lied to, and I do too.
Yeah, I do. So and then that leads us into your Obama birth certificate debacle.
Let's talk about another lie here, and we can talk about other government lies. But again, getting into this tyranny thing, part of a tyrannical government is about lying about certain aspects, and I think you've seen in. At least we believe, anyway, we're getting lied to constantly now, or it's being revealed more. And I think it's worse now than ever. It's just so blatant. But I want to bring people to memory lane again. We did memory lane for C-19.
We did.
There's lies all through that as well. But let's go back to another one. Obama's birth certificate. So back in 2011, there was that big hoopla about his birth certificate. So the White House produced the long form, I guess they called it. And there was some problems with that. And I want to bring people's memories back to this. So Donald Trump had brought it up prior to the election about the authenticity of his citizenship. And so they finally produced one in 2011. I think it was in the spring, March or April,
I remember.
maybe.
Yeah.
And there was immediately some problems. They found that the PDF had layers on it because it was supposed to be a copy. It wasn't. It was a PDF. It had various layers in it. And I'm not a computer person, never have been. I barely, I turn my CDs over to play the other side. So, but anyway, there was various layers in there which people were able to extract and see that this was a forgery. And there was investigations. I won't go into the investigation, but I'll talk about some of the lies that were involved in this. Because I want to bring you back to how extensive these lies are and then how these things fall off from the radar because they just move on to another thing and leave you there to accept it or to just suck on it, and you're just like, what the hell is going on here? The same thing with the cocaine, for instance. These perpetual lies there. Or, Jacob Shamley, the QAnon guy, getting 41 months in prison. There's a lie there. There's videotape, but there's a lie. There's this sequence of lies. But again, let's go back to Obama. So what they did here, apparently with Obama's birth certificate, is they took various aspects from another woman's, an infant, obviously, a newborn's birth certificate taken about 16 days later. And I think her name is Joanna Ni, and through investigations they were able to transpose, and they would see that back in the day these birth certificates were typed, and that meant that the alignment of any one point on there, because it was typed, nothing, if you were to overlay two, even though it was the same form, nothing would line up. You wouldn't have the same lineup. It just wouldn't be caught in the same exact position, angles, whatnot, because of the way you would feed it into the typewriter if you've ever used a typewriter. It's an impossibility. It's an anomaly. It just would not happen. And they found that there was 5 points on the birth certificate where these, I think it was blocks 20 and 22, for instance, they took from the source document of this woman's birth certificate and transposed them over, and they lined up exactly. The chances of that happening are nil and none. And that did happen. And also in blocks, I think it was 6C and 6E, these check marks, which they used from, I think, again, the source document they were using from, it was the same check mark. In fact, it was the same block. They just transposed it over. And there's other anomalies with the birth certificate being a hoax as well. Again, the layers on there. But I wanted to bring us back to that lie. And it really goes into another lie that's going on. There isn't anybody in this country right now that isn't scratching their head on some level about the competency of the current president. And I don't believe that he's fully in charge. We have things where Obama had said, well, I'd like to have another term, but I can't, referencing the Constitution, I think he did. But he said it would be great if I had a front person out there, and I just pulled the strings, referencing to a puppet. So I think that's exactly what Joe Biden is. I think that, we have this illegitimacy built on top of an illegitimacy. It's like building a house, but there's really no foundation there. It's just a shell. It's fake. It's false. There's nothing there. It's not substantial, but it's acting as if it's a solid part of the institution, and it's not. And this is the part of the tyranny thing. They just continually build on these lies, these constant lies to the American people. And I believe this was one. He was like a Manchurian candidate. He was elected. I'm talking about Obama. And then, if anybody believes that this president was elected legitimately, well, maybe he was, but I can tell you this. In Philadelphia alone, 183,000 consecutive votes after they started counting the votes was cast for one candidate, and his name is Biden. The statistical probability of that, again, is nearly zero, and it's actually none. So to say that he's legitimately elected, I question this highly, and I think it's healthy to question this, and I think it's healthy to question Barack Obama's. Remember this too. Barack Obama's used to operate under a name called Barry Soetoro, and he went to college on this. And so let's talk about another little bit of a lie that went on. He came over here from Hawaii, and he started out at Occidental. Going to school, and then he was only there for like 2 years. Well, he went there, he applied there as a foreign student aid under the name Barry Soetoro. Now, nobody knows where he legitimately changed his name back to Barack Hussein Obama, and we won't even talk about the little red school he went to there and his influences as a child, but he's at Occidental going by the name of Barry Soetoro, and he applies for student aid as a foreign student. Okay? That raises, you should be able to question these things and not be considered a conspiracy theorist. You should be able to ask these questions, and you should be able to get legitimate answers. No, you can't. You can't find out his grades. You can't find out his thesis from Harvard. And here's a good one. So he ends up at Columbia after Occidental. Interestingly enough, he goes to Occidental University, Columbia. And while he's at Columbia, interesting to say that there was a class president there who could not recall. In fact, there was 400 students that were contacted at Columbia University, and nobody at Columbia remembers Barack Hussein Obama. And all his records, all his school records are supposedly locked away, and you can't even see him from Harvard. Nobody remembers him. Nobody remembers him. There's a problem here. And I read an article where some woman does remember playing soccer with him, and somebody is like, okay, one, she wasn't identified. Nobody in a class remembers him, and this one woman comes out and says, yeah, she remembers playing on a quad or something, soccer with him or something like that, and him being really quiet. And he came out later to say, like, well, when I was at Columbia University in New York, I was basically a very quiet person. And then he went on to Harvard, and so it's a very mysterious background. And who paid for this? Here's another thing. Who paid for his education? Again, this information is locked away. And then he becomes president after being a senator for only 2 years. And now we have, we brought up the thing about, his birth certificate and so forth. It's part of a tyrannical government is what we're talking about here, and being lied to. It's like being lied to about this chef here, or all the people that were Arkansided, and all this. It's all a blanket of lies, and it's an indication of a banana republic, which is nothing more than a tyranny. So that's where I wanted to go with this. I wanted to refresh your memory. Please go back and look at his past and the things he said. And do you really feel that we have a legitimate president right now, or do you really feel that he is a puppet? And the puppet master is somebody else, possibly Barack Hussein Obama. We don't know. We just
Well,
don't know.
That leads us into our last and final chapter of the show.
Okay, what is it?
We have the impeachment.
Oh, yes.
So,
Impeachment inquiry.
right, because, I don't know if it's actually going to go through, because
And who wants to bring it forward?
I think it's,
McCarthy?
yeah. Well, I think it's because he's being pushed by...
Well, he is the head
He's
of
the House.
Right.
So, it's going to go to the
Majority
House. And then it'll go to the Senate. And I think, of course, it's going to pass the House just because there's a
Right.
majority. But here's the thing. The whole bribery thing is being proven, every day.
Yeah,
So that is an actual legitimate impeachment.
exactly.
Like, that one, it actually states in there. Bribery, I think, what is it? Treason, high crimes.
High crimes and misdemeanors. Remember, misdemeanors are small things.
Right. So, but bribery, I believe, is either the first or second thing before they say high crimes and misdemeanors.
Well, that's in the 14th Amendment. There's a clause in the 14th Amendment about treason, where if you're found to be treasonous, then you cannot sit in an elected office.
So I think, well, here's the thing. I don't even know if it's going to pass. I mean, he has, 1 year left?
Yeah, I don't know what it's going to do. It'll bring him down, and it'll put what, Camilla Harris in there.
And then everyone's going to be like, "Ooh, this is not what we want. The word sandwich. We don't want that."
But then McCarthy will move up into the vice presidency. Does anybody trust McCarthy after he welched on his promises there about the last, budget cycle?
I don't know. I don't think. I mean, I don't trust any of them, to be honest. I mean, they're all looking for democracy, and I'm not looking for democracy. So we're not buddies. But I think that I'm going to leave with this quote. It's from Thomas Sowell. Is that how you say his name?
Sowell?
I don't know.
Sowell.
However you say it.
S-O-W-E-L. He's a great man, by the way.
It's hard to imagine a more stupid and more dangerous way of making decisions than putting those decisions in the hands of people who pay no price for being wrong.
No price for being wrong.
So...
there's no consequences.
Exactly, and as you can see, Fauci didn't get any consequences.
Not yet.
Biden, no real consequences. Hunter Biden, no real consequences.
Not yet.
I mean, we are literally giving people the ability to do whatever the hell they want.
Another aspect of tyranny.
Exactly.
Tyrannical government.
So we need to start studying the Constitution and abiding by what the Constitution says and make them follow the Constitution.
Yeah.
That's my final note.
Well, that was a good show. So anyway, we want comments, please. So, and if you guys are interested in our nifty little merchandise, let us know, and we'll try to get you some.